guys, today I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review of Tonight the Streets Are Ours by Leila Sales. This is a YA contemporary novel about a girl called Arden who describes herself as recklessly loyal. She finally gets sick of people taking advantage of her loyalty, and she stumbles across a blog called Tonight the Streets Are Ours, which is written by a young writer called Peter, and she goes on a bit of an adventure to find him. To be honest, I didn't like this book at all, but there are several reasons why I didn't like it, and there are reasons that made me think and kept me thinking and that I want to talk about. I gave this book 2 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. For me, a 2 out of 5 means that I didn't like it, but it did have enough redeeming features to bump it up from a 1. The main reason that I did bump it up from a 1 was that I read the whole thing in one sitting. It kept me hooked and I wanted to finish it and I wanted to know what happened in the end. So yeah, I couldn't put it down. So that was one good thing that I enjoyed about this book. My reasons for disliking this book so much stem from an entirely personal sort of standpoint. I didn't like the characters and I didn't like the writing style and I didn't like the themes that were communicated in this book. But these things all come down to just my opinion. One thing that I'll mention before I get into any of that is the storyline of this book. I like the whole idea of hunting down a boy from a blog and going on a, one night of adventures. And actually reading the blurb, it initially made me think of Nick and Nora's Infinite Playlist, which is a movie which if you've seen you'll know what I mean. It's kind of like that whole adventure coming of age thing happening in only one night. But I felt like the story could have gone in so many directions that it just didn't, and I found the ending very predictable. I literally predicted the outcome of a certain situation within the first few chapters, and then that outcome happened and I was like... So moving on to the characters, for me to really dislike a character, their negative traits have to drastically outweigh all of their positive traits, and this was true for me for all of the characters in this book. I disagreed with all of their decisions, all of their motivations, and all of their reactions to everything. I just didn't get it. To me, it also read more like a middle grade novel because of the outlook of all of the young people in this. Every time one of them was driving a car or mentioned like drugs or sex or something, I was kind of like, what? And then I'd realize that, oh right, these people are meant to be 17, they're not actually 12. The main character Arden is always on a kind of moral high ground, which was really irritating, and her character development to me just didn't feel authentic. She's described in a certain way as being like super loyal, and then all of a sudden becomes really resentful, and then eventually learns some stuff and is okay again. Her storyline just seemed to me to be too forced and kind of unrealistic. Like, I don't think someone who went through the things that Arden went through would really have that much of a dramatic change in perspective. In this book as well, her storyline parallels her mother's storyline, and I really didn't like that. It seemed way too obvious. They were coincidentally on the exact same personal journey, both learning the exact same thing, and it was like the whole purpose of that parallel was that Arden's eventually going to come to terms with some decisions that her mother has made, but it just seemed way too like obvious of a way to do that. Moving on to the writing style, I didn't enjoy the writing style of this book. It switches from third person past tense in the beginning, which is not something I enjoy reading. It just makes me feel disconnected from a story. It then switches to third person present tense, which was better but kind of too little too late, and then finally at the end it switches to first person present tense, which was really weird. It did like a whole documentary style, this is where we are now kind of thing. The entirety of the first part of the story as well, which was told in third person past tense, felt like a backstory, so I wasn't really that interested in it. I was kind of just like, okay, let's get into the story now. There were parts of that that I enjoyed, which was Peter's blog entries. I really liked reading those. Otherwise, yeah, the beginning of this really dragged out for me. And finally though, getting into the thing that I most disliked, but in the best kind of way, about this book were the themes. There are some strong themes that come across in this book that I just could not relate to and did not agree with, and that's something that's really interesting to me. As much as I didn't like them and I disagreed with them, I really like a book that makes me think about the themes and think about some larger ideas. Arden in this book is continually asking herself, why doesn't anyone love me as much as I love them? The answer that the author seems to want you to come up with is, it's because you spend too much energy on other people and you don't love yourself enough. I'm going to explain why I personally completely disagree with that answer in 2 different parts, because there's kind of 2 different parts to that answer. So the first one is that spending too much energy loving other people. There's a huge fixation in this book on services being the only way to express or show love to someone. Services as in doing something for someone, doing them a favour, taking a bullet for them, that kind of thing. If you're familiar with the love languages, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you're not, I'm going to link a website about the love languages below so that you can see what I'm talking about. But basically there are different ways of showing and expressing love, and yeah, there's a complete fixation in this book on services being the way of expressing love, and that's just not true. There are other ways of showing love to someone. In my own life, I don't rate services as something that's really important in expressing love. I couldn't relate to this like at all, and it kind of irritated me quite a lot. There is one single sentence towards the end of the book where Arden kind of decides what love really is, and that statement I actually completely agreed with, but it was one sentence, and if you weren't like kind of looking for that one sentence like I was, you probably wouldn't notice it. If you've read this and you're thinking, what sentence was that exactly? It's not memorable. So it's not something that she seems to really learn, it's something that she just states later on. So like she has learned it already, but we don't see her learning that. So instead of having that idea of what love is in your mind at the end of this book, you're just thinking of love as being services and showing your dedication to someone. So I think, yeah, that was just something that I couldn't relate to and I didn't agree with at all. The second point is about not loving yourself enough. There's this idea expressed throughout the book that it's really important to find yourself, but not in the way of finding out who you are and what your identity is as a person, like a coming of age kind of way. It's more about finding yourself in relation to stopping spending so much time taking care of other people and thinking about other people, and spending more time on thinking about yourself and what you want instead of worrying about what someone else needs from you. So it's this idea that it's important to find yourself instead of just being someone's sister or someone's girlfriend or someone's friend or whatever your position is. Again, it's just not a concept that I can personally relate to. It comes across more as something that would come up in a new adult fiction book instead of a YA book, because like I said, it's not so much a coming of age thing as like learning to be less selfless. It comes across to me as more of an idea that would be expressed better in like a, I'm having a midlife crisis, I've spent all this time bringing up my children and now they're old enough that they don't really need me anymore, and I don't know who I am if I'm not a mother or a father. I don't know what else to do with my time, which I just couldn't relate back to YA. I understand some young people would probably relate to this really well if you're the kind of person who has had a lot of responsibility thrust on you from a young age, or people who have been brought up to believe that selflessness is the most important thing. And it just makes me think of Tris in Divergent and Amity, is it? I feel like she would relate quite well to this book, but for me, with my personal experiences and my personal beliefs and outlooks and stuff, I've always thought that it's important to have a balance between putting yourself first and thinking about how other people feel, and having a balance between those two things. So you're not, you know, letting people walk all over you and stuff, but you're still caring about people. And I just didn't get it. Like I said, there will be people who relate to that theme, but not me. So to summarize, clearly this book is worth something because of how long this video is and how much I have to say about it. It made me think a lot of thoughts. Like I said, I'm sure people with different preferences would really like this book, so people with different outlooks on love and stuff like that. So even though I disagreed with many aspects of this book, I still totally recommend it just because it made me think a lot, and I think that's a good thing. I like things that make me think. So even though I didn't like this book and I didn't agree with the themes in it, I think it's worth a read if you haven't read this already. If you haven't read it and you want to discuss anything with me, leave your thoughts in the comments below, because I would like to know what you guys thought of this, whether it made you think at all or if you just kind of read it and thought that was cool and moved on with your life. Thanks for watching this video, and I will see you guys with my next one. Bye.